through the discussions, the Africa Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice, that actually ran through all the discussions that were coming. So this afternoon, we have very few objectives through this particular session. What is it that we want to achieve? We want to help our members to have a full appreciation of the journey that this network has traveled, how it all started, what is it that they've been doing, and how best can we make use of this particular initiative going forward. But most importantly, at the end of the day, we want this assembly to formally become part and parcel of this network. And that we are actually going to ask through my director, I'm going to ask the General Secretary to convince us or to convince the leadership so that from now onwards, we were successful yesterday in our side event. All the delegates who participated in that side event became part and parcel of this network. So we are only here to explain the journey that we have walked through this one. So in terms of process, I'm going to take you through the journey. Then along the way, one of the panelists here, Reverend Lesmore, is going to explain a bit in terms of, because today in the morning, we heard a lot about the localized initiatives. You haven't heard much about the high-level policy engagements that we have also been doing. So he is going to touch on that. And I will also request him to reflect a bit on the theme that also was mentioned in the morning and the motto of the AFAN-CJ as we go. Then after that, we are going to have one of the members here representing hundreds of these network members across Africa, just affirming or just sharing with you what he thinks about this particular network. Then after that, we are going to have a short documentary just to summarize our journey since we started up to today. Then, through the director again, I will then request the General Secretary to come back, because we were with him when we started this journey, to then officially unveil this network to our members. This is how we are going to do it. So, my remarks are not very complicated because already we have been engaged in this discussion. We have noted the reality of climate crisis through issues of droughts, floods, displacements, climate-induced conflicts, and all those other things that have been coming through our discussions. But as AACC, we also continued to ask the question, what has actually changed since the time when God actually created his creatures? Since the time of that beautiful Garden of Eden, what has actually changed? So we also engaged this debate from many angles. We also listened to scientists, we listened to various experts, we listened to politicians as they engaged at COP processes, at climate weeks, and all those summits. But we then decided to deeply reflect on our special role in that, yes, science is there, yes, politics is there, experts are there to explain to us the situation, but also the possible solution. As a church, we have a special role that we wanted to locate in this whole debate. Then, we then noted that we didn't have any option but actually to be engaged in this debate of climate change. However, we are not worried. We took note of those other responses, the science, the politics, and others. Our focus now was to see how best we can do it from where we come from our context. How can we theologically understand this debate? I think in the morning, Prof assisted us also to beef up the gaps that still existed in our understanding. But we realized that for us, it's not about how scientific we can be, how political we can be. It's all about trying to locate the justice component of the whole debate. Clearly, it was coming out in the previous discussion that this is a human, we see a human contribution to the disaster. We have those that are contributing more than others, and what is actually being done to that. So we located the discussion around justice. we are worried about the justice component of the whole debate, the ethics of this debate, the morality of it. That became our niche, that became our special position, that became our special departure point. And as a result of that, we then said, so how can we best contribute to the solution? We again reflected. We continued to have to hold some consultative meetings with you, the members, high-level consultations, some localized, and in the process, we then agreed that we can actually come up with a vehicle that can assist us to achieve the objective that we wanted to do. That is the justice, the ecological justice component. During one of the consultations, it actually became clear that we cannot monopolize this intervention as AACC. Yes, we have a special role, but climate change does not know any color, it does not know any age, it does not know even any religion. As a result, we needed to also work with others. And the only way of working with others without actually polluting or neutralizing our identity is to come up with a network model. A network model allows us to continuously remain who we are in terms of our vision, our objectives, our values, but at the same time working with others. So the network model allowed us to be coordinated as faith leaders. It also allowed us to be mobilized. It also allowed us to be activated when it comes to amplification of the voice of the faith leaders. So we invited others, and our aim was to ensure that all the faith leaders are part and parcel of this network. However, as we present this to you today, we only have the faith, the Christian community and the Muslim community. And we have managed to establish this particular network together, and we are working so well, as I'm going to share with you the achievements so far. In doing so, we came up with a framework to guide our work. I'm not going to touch on the theme at the moment. It is going to be presented later. But the operational aspect of it, how were we going to work? We are coming from different angles, but we are fighting a common enemy. So we came up with some terms of reference to guide our operations. We came up with also a steering committee to also steer operations, to steer processes at sub-regional level. So we have a steering committee that we have representing all the regions, and I'm happy that in terms of the AACC structural aspect, this network is well represented. We actually have the presidium president in this particular network. The heads of denominations are here, and also the various wings are well represented in this particular network. So we wanted to congratulate ourselves in terms of that. So in terms of what we have managed to do as of today, we managed to run all the local initiatives as indicated earlier on, but we have also managed to fulfill or to occupy some strategic spaces that are there for us. For example, the climate weeks, the summit, the COP processes. As a result of that, we can actually say we have managed to occupy the space that is key for faith actors when it comes to climate justice. So this time around, I will allow the director to reflect a bit on the theme that is actually guiding our processes, and also the motto that motivates us in our work, before we hear a little bit about the voice from one of the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tinashe is the program executive responsible for economic and ecological justice at the AACC. And we are delighted, like he did mention, that the issue of climate change, we saw it right from the beginning, from the conception that led to the birth of Africa Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice. The first consultation that we had in Addis Ababa was jointly organized by the office in Nairobi and also our liaison office in Addis Ababa. And the GS came with this theme that can we run with this from the text of Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 7 that says the welfare of the nation where you are is also your welfare. So meaning when the children of Israel were in exile, okay, you don't know how long you're going to tarry there in exile, but ensure that the welfare of where you are is your also welfare. The well-being of that nation is also your well-being. And so that became our theological text that journeyed with us in our engagement from there, that gave birth to what today we are presenting as Africa Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice. Probably would have said climate change, but we say climate justice because issues relating to climate change are also issues of justice. And that's why we have a slogan that we have popularized going forward in all the processes, that the matters of climate change are matters of life and death. It cannot be politicized, it cannot be commodified, it cannot be objectified. So these are very critical. And as religious leaders, Christians and Muslims together, young and old, fat and thin, and all others, have a responsibility as stewards. Professor Mante here earlier mentioned about 7 propositions that he made. And these are the things that are accompanying us to say the issues of climate change are matters of life and death. And because they are matters of life and death, all of us have a collective responsibility to ensure that we protect the ecosystem, protect the biodiversity, that all of us benefit from it. So it is not about us, because the poverty, the impact of climate change we're experiencing today is because of human greed, structural greed. And some are ready to do whatever they want to do at the expense of creation. And so it is not about you when we talk about humanity as the crown of creation. It does not give you the right, the dominion to plunder, to rape the Mother Earth. It is about justice and holding those big pollutants, emitters, to account. So when we talk about reparation, we are not only talking about reparation in relation to human slavery and colonialism. We are also holding those who have polluted the atmospheric condition that today we are suffering to account for it as a result of industrial revolution. So we have a responsibility. And this is only possible if moral faith leaders speak out. You cannot be in an unholy romance with those in power. So we have a responsibility to challenge systems and structures of injustice. And so that is why AFAN-CJ exists. And AACC is mobilizing each one of you to be a part of this. And that's why the GS said, no, we have inaugurated this AFAN-CJ. Let's more go ahead and present it, and that is it. And so, but before we do that, in conclusion, we will want to hear a bit in terms of a testimony of one of the church leaders who was among those who were part of those that were inaugurated at the birth of Africa Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice. And he has 2 minutes to do that. And your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you so very much. My name is Reverend Dr. Amos Kiri. I'm the president of the United Church of Christ in Nigeria. I represent the entire AFAN-CJ leaders and all other persons that have been the founding members of this noble cause. I like to state that after seeing and experiencing many good initiatives and some of the works that we have carried out, I stand here to tell us that the network has grown and is doing great work on the continent. For instance, on the regional levels, AFAN-CJ members have initiated local contents in an effort to address climate change in more practical ways, as we will see in the video clip to be shown later. So, with the growing and damaging consequences of the climate change, faith actors, faith leaders' need a voice, and this network has been working to mobilize and also influence government policies on our continent. So, Mr. President and the General Secretary, on behalf of all members of AACC, I invite all faith leaders, all faith actors on this continent and partners globally to join this network. Let us green the earth, let us take the lead in not only the processes and conversation of climate justice, but in providing practical solutions for climate justice. Because the welfare of the earth is our welfare. Importantly, this matter of climate justice is a matter of life and death.
Can you give him an applause, please? I'm sure you are not angry with what he has said. Now we have a video for 5 minutes. Please, can we have the video played? Please watch the video, enjoy it, and take some challenges and inspiration from it.
One of the most critical challenges facing Africa today is climate change. The African Church has decided it can no longer sit on the sidelines and must be fully engaged in addressing this issue. This is because it has very adversely affected the livelihoods of their congregants. Further, the issue of climate justice is now top of the agenda as African countries, which are the least polluting, bear a disproportionate burden of the effects of climate change, while the West, who are the biggest polluters, are reluctant to pay for the loss and damage. Africa's ecumenical community, under the leadership of the All-African Conference of Churches AACC, has formed the African Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice AFAN-CJ to address this crisis and heal the earth, as Dr. Tinashe explains.
The Africa Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice spearheads the work of the AACC on creation care. It is a multi-sectoral, multi-faith and multi-skilled network which is found in all corners of Africa. It is responsible for engaging at local level, at continental level, but also at global level at the COP, during the COP processes. The network is guided by a theme, the welfare of the earth is our welfare, where we recognize that climate change has become a menace to our life, our social, economic, and even political life. So the network responds in a way that allows faith actors to influence processes at all those levels.
The AFAN-CJ network is undertaking activities across the continent in conjunction with its partners and other stakeholders to raise awareness on climate justice.
The love of Christ compels us to be faithful stewards of creation. Because of Christ's love to us and because of our love for Christ, we have been given the responsibility to take care of creation. Because taking care of creation is not for the sake of pleasing God, it is for our own sake, because the welfare of the earth is our welfare. Therefore, if we love God's people, we must be responsible, faithful stewards of God's creation. Because the joy, the love, the livelihood, and security of all of us depends on how we take care of God's creation.
The reason why we are so passionate, especially on issues of creation care and climate justice, is because one of the sectors that has always been overlooked are the women, and secondly, the persons with disabilities. And so as a sector, we are trying to bring together these two big themes on how do we share the information that we have on climate change, and also how do we bring these people onto the table to be able to influence the policy. Because if you're not there, then definitely there is nothing that will be said about you. And that is the more reason as to why we are advocating for information sharing and also using that information as a knowledge towards ensuring that the policies that we come up with are inclusive of women and also persons with disabilities.
I envision an alliance that will not fail to open its doors to accommodate more countries on board, faith actors, academia, civil society, young people, and indigenous communities, because land is our common identity.
Establish a mechanism to address loss and damage, including non-economic losses and damages, and guarantee a process for countries and communities in the front line of climate impact to secure additional, adequate, and accessible financing.
Viewers, and welcome to Kigali, Rwanda, where we've come to plant trees. My name is Dr. Sheikh Hassan Kenyomari, the CEO Peace League Africa, and also the Eastern Region Coordinator of African Faith Actors Network on Climate Justice. And actually we have had a long week discussing matters COP 27 and also climate change in Africa and the entire world. And we have decided to do it practically, where we've come to plant tree, as you can see. And that's why we have visited this school, KPS, in Rwanda, where we are planting the trees.
We're not just talking about Africa that is being affected. So the question is, what can our governments in Africa do? The issues of climate change are matters that must be treated as life and death. It cannot be politicized.
At the recently concluded Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, the AACC Director of Programs, Reverend Dr. Lismol Ezekiel, made an impassioned plea to African leaders on climate change.
We need to demand from those with responsibility. Our people are suffering, and yet we are told that we don't have scientific evidence to prove that we are suffering from climate change. For God's sake, who is setting the standard?
And as Africa gears towards COP28 in Dubai, the network will intensify its activities to ensure a positive outcome for the continent.
For us, the Africa Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice remains our vehicle for climate justice. We will continue to support them. We will continue to ensure that they grow in terms of numbers and their visibility in the various countries. The most important thing is for them to be able to engage at local level as they raise awareness around issues of climate change, as they engage their governments, but also as they contribute to global and continental debates around climate justice issues. But we also continue to work with our technical partners and also governments and other key stakeholders as we build the capacity of our network in this work as AACC.
Thank you very much. Now this is just a glimpse of what we have been doing as Africa Faith Actors Network, coordinated at the Secretariat in Nairobi. And we have members in different parts of the continent, Christians and Muslims together. And here, even here, we have some religious leaders who are delegates to this assembly. We're just imagining if our members are allowed to even come here, would have flooded the area. But please allow us to recognize members of the Afan CJ that are here with us. We have Madam Tendai from Zimbabwe, Reverend Amos Kiri from Nigeria, and Rose from Sierra Leone, and of course our able president seated there gazing at us, President Temple is also a member. We know Reverend Lawson Godson from Togo is also a member, and Madam Pauline, who was here, and many others who are seated here. But this is to say, the door is open for all of us to join in this movement. It is not just a network, but a movement. So on behalf of the GS and our team, we want to welcome you to join us in this journey of survival, of a journey of life and death. We thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lesmore, and thanks to members of the team. Let's give a big hand to them again. And we say again, the welfare of the earth is our welfare. Can we say that together? The welfare of the earth is, that's great. We want to invite the Americans in diaspora to bring greetings. Africans in diaspora, sorry. Did I say Americans? Nominations committee, please get ready. Are you around? Please, Brian. Just a minute. Who? Maybe they went out. Sister Angelique. Salam Ab, Bread for the World, and AACC. You can come with your greetings.